My name is Kris Mitchell, and I am a 2D mixed media watercolor artist. I have been an artist all my life. I started, my introduction to art was probably pre-school. My mother was she used to like to draw, particularly she liked to draw horses. And I was infatuated with the fact that she could put down on a piece of paper something that looked like it was coming to life. It would jump out of the page at me, and I was thrilled with that. And so when I started my formal education or my education in school, any of those elective classes that I could get that were art classes, I would take. So I took all the art classes clear through school and into high school, and started into college doing art classes. It was when I started going to college that I realized that, and this is, I'm going to tell my age a little bit here. This was in the 70s, so it became clear to me that I was either going to go into commercial art, advertising, or fashion design or something like that. I wasn't, or I was going to marry into art, and that was going to be, my. I was going to support myself by being married to my art, because it is a very competitive field, and you have to really be driven day in and day out in order to make a decent living at it. So those kind of seemed like my choices, and I decided that I didn't really want to marry my art. I decided I wanted to go out and choose another path to make a living. So I kind of deviated from my art for a while, went out and started a career in another field, and met my husband, had my family, did all of those things. It was when my youngest son was after raising my boys, and my youngest son was in first grade, and all of a sudden I had this chunk of time in the day that I wasn't obliged to be doing something else. I was fortunate to be able to spend some time at home with my sons while they were going through school. So when he started first grade and I had that chunk of time available to me, I kind of looked around, what am I going to do with the rest of my life? And started kind of asking the questions as, am I going to go back to work full time, or what do I want to do? And my wonderful husband suggested that maybe I should think about going back to school. So it was that point in my career that I went back to my art. I started taking drawing classes at the local community college, just the adult education kind of genre where I could just walk in and draw, and I went from there. When I started back to taking classes, I started taking drawing classes, and I think that the drawing instructor that was down here at Benton Center didn't know what to do with me after a while, because I just kept taking drawing classes after drawing classes after drawing classes, and at a certain point she didn't have anything else to teach me, so I would just basically going into the classes just to have that space and that time to do drawings. After that, it kind of progressed into colored pencil, because it was, it was again, it was a pencil in my hand and it was color. So introducing color into my work through a colored pencil seemed like a natural transition. I worked in colored pencil for many years, from about the early 90s up until I retired from teaching classes. I got into a colored pencil workshop, and I took the workshop for several years, and it became kind of a social group But we thoroughly enjoyed what we were doing. And then the instructor that was teaching the classes decided that she was going to leave the area. And it was, oh my gosh, what are we going to do with the workshop and all the people that are taking classes? And I said, well, I'm going to teach it if we're not going to, so it continues. That was back in 2000, 1999, 2000. So I started teaching the workshop, and then from there started teaching drawing classes and so on and so forth through the community college. And I did that for 17 years. After a while, I started, at the same time that I was doing the colored pencils classes, I kind of took a few watercolor classes, and then kind of stuck with the colored pencil for quite some time. And then kind of started progressing into, they have a watercolor pencil, so I started kind of working with watercolors in a pencil form. I joined a group of artists locally that are called Vistas and Vineyards. It's a plein air group that goes out every Wednesday morning, and they paint on location all during the summer. And I would go out with these big pieces of paper, and I'm trying to take these pencils and make this landscape in a morning, and by noon most of them are done. Some of them have done two, and I'm still trying to mess with this. Well, this is going to be there, and this is going to be there, and sometime this is going to be finished. So I kind of tried to learn, how can I make this work faster for me? I got to where I was pretty fast being able to do colored pencil with watercolor fairly quickly in a morning kind of time frame. But I kind of felt like I was more and more being kind of restrained by only being able to use the pencils and not being able to kind of work a little bigger and broader. So when I decided that I wanted to kind of work larger and faster and bigger, I kind of looked to what made sense for me. I did a little playing around with what are called liquid acrylics. They're kind of watered down acrylics. They have a binder in them that you can actually thin down quite a bit and still have the binding factors with acrylics. So I did the liquid acrylics for a while. I enjoyed them, except that they still felt plastic to me. I didn't have that flow or that feeling I had with watercolor. There were oils available. I also wanted to get kind of that thick feeling that you get with a thicker paint. I guess I just kind of, through all of those decisions and through all of that trial and error, kind of decided, watercolors is the way I'm going to go. But I work with any kind of watercolor type of medium. There's a product called water-soluble wax pastels made from Caran d'Ache, and I can't for the life of me think how you get a watercolor wax pastel, but it's basically they're big fat crayons that we used to use when we were kids. It's pure watercolor, and I can get these crayons out and scribble all over the place, and then spray it with water, and there it is. This cool things start to happen. So I am both a studio artist and a plein air artist. I did plein air for many years and continue to do plein air. I feel like it's that being out in nature that gives me the ability to then go take that, what I'm getting from being out in nature, and bring that into the studio and be able to produce larger works in the studio that still and still draw on what I experienced in nature. since I am a plein air artist, obviously I like to do landscapes. So landscapes have a pretty important theme in my work. And I also like to garden. So I like, I like doing florals or floral types of paintings. I like happy paintings. I don't do portraits. I have done graphite portraits and watercolor or colored pencil portraits. But what I find with portraits is that they're very specific to a person. And when I think about letting my art go out into the world, I want it to kind of go out to. I want it to touch the viewer in a personal way, not be quite so much as, oh, here's a beautiful painting of my granddaughter or whatever. So that's why I have chosen not to go into portraits so much. I like the feeling in my paintings that you could walk into the scene, or that you could go live there, or that's a nice place where I'd like to go be. When I progressed as an artist, starting to make those decisions as to how I wanted to market myself and what kind of art I wanted to do. One of those questions becomes, do you want to, are you going to sell prints? Are they going to be limited edition? What are how are you going to deal with that? At one point, I even thought about, I'm savvy enough with a computer and technology that I could probably get a printer and do my own prints. But then I quickly realized that, I don't want to be a print shop. I want to be an artist. I want to paint. So I do have some of my colored pencil work is available through my website. You can go there's a website that it's linked to. I think it's called Image Kind, and you can go order prints of my earlier work from the colored pencil mostly, because of the fact that I could get those images to Image Kind in a high enough resolution for them to be able to print a variety of different forms. Canvas and so on and so forth, and different size prints for the home, that kind of thing. I do a limited amount of cards. I sell them exclusively through Spindrift in Philomath. I'm a member of the Philomath Open Studio Tour, and I have been for the last, 8-10 years, I can't remember. But Spindrift has my cards. They have them year-round. Other than that, I don't distribute them otherwise, other than giving them to friends and to my family. Again, I don't want to get into the print business, so but I do like to have control over those images and how they're presented. So that's kind of nice, and it gives me a little pocket change. But the work that I've gone into now, where I wanted to get my surface manipulated in the way that it is, makes it really hard to reproduce my work. The wrinkles and the crinkles and the bumps don't come across unless you're viewing them live. In the progression of my work, I have, I've learned from a lot of different teachers. I've taken a lot of different workshops, and working through all of that and my changes in how I wanted to work and what I was working with kind of led me on a path where I was starting to work on paper, but the paper didn't seem to give me the surface quality that I wanted. So I would start taking acrylic paint and putting it down and then doing my colored pencil over the top of it. Or I would put down tissue paper or gesso on the paper, and then try painting over the top of it in some form, either with colored pencil or watercolor pencil or whatever. And I was getting some good results, and I was enjoying what I was doing. And I just that kind of fed into that creative cycle, and I wanted more of that. I wanted to kind of expand on that. And like I mentioned earlier, I love the thickness of oil paints and some of the heavy-bodied acrylic that you could get, such lush, thick paint going on. I wanted that feeling, but I didn't want to work in that medium. So that kind of brought me around to working with more and more with putting a textured surface down first, and then painting over the top of it. And through experimentation, I found that I could take this. Basically, it's paper that you would use in Japanese brush painting, and it's very organic in its feel. And once you get it wet, it falls apart. I mean, this is ground up fibers from trees or rice or mulberry and made into paper by hand. And what I found is that I could put this on a canvas surface. I prefer to work on the birch panels because I get very physical with my work. I like to get my hands and my fingers and everything right into the surface. And they do manufacture a surface that's similar to what I work on. It's just that it's laid down with a machine, and it's very uniform. It doesn't have an organic feel to it. So that's kind of the progression into where I wanted the surface of my canvases to have an organic feel to them prior to me even starting to do my painting. Okay, what would I have? What would I suggest someone just starting out, an artist just starting out? I'm going to go back then to my art education, and when I was doing art as a young person, I did it all. I did all of it. I tried throwing pots. I tried oils. I tried acrylics. I tried watercolors. I tried drawing. I tried, you name it. I would try it because you don't know what your passion's going to be unless you try it. You learn pretty quickly if that's something that oh gosh, I really love doing that, I want to do it more, or that was torturous and I would just as soon never do that again. What artists that inspire me? I'm very inspired by the Impressionist work. I have always liked the Impressionists. I fell in love with at those early drawings of that realism that was captured by my mother in the horse drawings, and then later my ability to be able to draw and to get that realistic feeling, those images jumping off the page in my graphite work. As I progressed, though, I became tired of the realism. It became boring to me. I felt like I needed to infuse more of myself into the work instead of trying to reproduce picturesquely what I was viewing. So that's probably why I turned more and more, or felt like I was more and more influenced by Impressionism. I find more and more that I'm feeling more connected with abstract art where I never was before. So, but without that exploration, you really don't have any idea what your passion's going to be. And I always felt like I needed to follow my passion more than anything else when I'm thinking about what I want to do as an artist. Because if I don't love it, if I'm not passionate about it, then it becomes work. And I don't do my art for work. I do my art because it's part of me. I'm passionate about it, and I love it.